Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at a collision of two, well, just massive forces. On one side, you have this absolute tidal wave of modern cyber threats. And the numbers we're going to talk about today are, honestly, they're staggering.
They really are. It's not just, more hacking. It's a fundamental shift in the scale of the problem. It's exponential.
And then on the other side, we have the tool that's supposed to save us, artificial intelligence. We're working from a really interesting stack of articles and industry reports today that argue cybersecurity is actually the killer app for AI.
Yeah.
Like, this is the one place where it's not just hype, but a survival requirement.
It's the perfect use case. And I think to understand why, you have to look at how use cases evolve in business. The source material uses this great analogy about the history of marketing.
Oh, I loved this part. It frames it as a kind of a timeline of sensory expansion.
Right. So if you go back to the turn of the 20th century, marketing is just print. It's newspapers. It's all visual, static.
And then the 1920s hit, radio comes along.
And suddenly you can hear the brand. Then TV in the 50s adds moving pictures.
And the 90s brings the internet, which shifts everything from this one-to-many broadcast to a targeted digital interaction.
Exactly. And the argument here is that we are in the next phase right now, the AI phase. Marketing now is using AI to predict what you want before you even know you want it.
It's predictive. It's personalized at a scale a human just can't touch.
And the parallel the authors are drawing is that cybersecurity is having that exact same moment, that internet moment or TV moment. It's not just a new tool, it's a complete reimagining of how the job gets done.
It has to be.
It has to be. And let's be clear, this isn't happening because tech companies just want to sell more AI. It's happening out of sheer necessity. The threat landscape has changed so drastically that the old ways, the human-centric methods, they literally cannot function anymore.
There was one statistic in the reading that really drove this home for me. It was from Amazon's security report.
The late 2024 figures.
Amazon reported they were dealing with, get this, 750 million cyber attack attempts per day.
Per day. Just let that sink in.
And the terrifying part isn't just the number, it's the velocity. Earlier in 2024, that number was what, around 100 million?
So a 7.5x increase in less than a year?
That is exactly why the old methods are dead. You physically cannot hire enough people to look at 750 million events. It's impossible. The math just doesn't work.
You'd need a whole country of analysts.
So that really sets the stage for our mission today. We're going to unpack how AI acts as that force multiplier, how it helps us fight back against that insane volume. We'll look at the two different personalities of AI predictive and generative.
And we're going to get practical. We'll talk about how you actually interact with these tools, the art of prompt engineering, because if you ask the wrong questions,
you get dangerous answers. And finally, we have to look at the flip side. Because if we have AI...
so do the bad guys. The arms race. It's unavoidable.
But before we get to the solution, let's just really solidify the problem. Why is defense so hard right now? I mean, besides the 750 million attacks.
Well, it's the sheer connectivity. It's the Internet of Things. 10 years ago, you were defending a server room and some laptops.
Right.
Now, you're defending a thermostat, a smart fridge, a digital door lock, a car.
Everything is an entry point.
Everything. And because they are all connected, a hacker in a basement halfway across the world can rattle your digital doorknob without ever leaving their chair. And they're not doing it by hand. They use automated scripts to rattle every doorknob in the city at the same time.
Speed is the weapon.
Yeah.
But there was another factor the source noted as the single biggest vulnerability. And it wasn't technical.
It's us, the human element.
User confusion. I feel this one personally. You get an email from IT saying, update this, a news alert saying, delete that, and then a notification from your bank saying, verify this.
It is so messy. Security advice is often contradictory or it's just overwhelming. And when people are overwhelmed, their cognitive load creates gaps. That is where mistakes happen.
You click the wrong link because you're tired and you're confused.
And the attackers know this. The reading breaks down this sort of bestiary of attacks that exploit either our technology or our psychology. I thought the distinction between a virus and a worm was really helpful.
People use those interchangeably, I think.
They do, but the mechanics are totally different. Think of a virus like a vampire.
Okay, I'm listening.
A vampire can't enter your house unless you invite it in. A virus needs a host file. You have to download the attachment or run the program to activate it. You are part of that infection chain.
So if you don't execute the file, the vampire stays on the porch.
Exactly. And a worm.
What's the worm?
A worm is the terminator. It doesn't need an invite. It's a standalone program that enters a network, finds a vulnerability in your OS that you haven't patched yet.
Sure.
And then it just copies itself to the next machine, and the next it hunts autonomously.
That is so much creepier. It feels almost biological.
It acts biologically. That's why we call them that. Then you have things like keyloggers. The source used this visual of a big invisible eyeball staring over your shoulder.
Which is just nightmare fuel.
It is, effectively. It records every keystroke, passwords, credit card numbers, that angry email you typed but decided not to send. The really sophisticated ones even take screenshots or hijack your webcam without the little light turning on.
But those are all technical hacks. The ones that really scare me are the psychological ones. Social engineering.
Hacking the human. This goes right back to that user confusion we talked about. If I can't break your firewall, well, I'll just convince you to open the door for me.
The source lists the psychological triggers they use. Authority and urgency seem to be the big ones.
It's a classic combo. You see it in almost every successful business compromise. You get a text or a call that says, I'm the CEO, I'm stuck in a meeting, I need you to wire these funds immediately, or we lose the deal.
So I am the CEO is the authority. Immediately is the urgency.
Right. Your brain goes into panic mode. You don't want to upset the boss, so you bypass security protocols, which usually take time because your cortisol is spiking.
And that's how phishing works. That's how ransomware gets a foothold.
Ransomware being that digital kidnapping. They encrypt your data, lock it all up, and demand crypto to give you the key back. And with AI, these attacks are becoming scarily convincing.
Okay, so we have a pretty bleak picture. 750 million attacks, autonomous worms, fake CEOs, stressing us out. We need a hero.
Or at least a very powerful sidekick.
Enter AI. The source uses this framework here that I think simplifies things beautifully. It compares AI to human brain functions. You have the creative side versus the analytical side.
It's a great way to split the technology because AI is such a broad term now. On one hand, you have humans who are artists, poets, writers. That's the creative side. In AI, that's generative AI or Gen AI.
So things like ChatGPT.
Yes, large language models for text, diffusion models for images. They create new data that didn't exist before.
And the analytical side.
That's the mathematician, the actuary.
Yeah.
AI, this is predictive AI. And while Gen AI gets all the headlines because it's fun to play with, predictive AI is the real heavy lifter in cybersecurity.
Because it moves us from reactive to proactive.
Exactly. Think about the difference between a smoke detector and, say, a weather satellite.
Okay.
A smoke detector is reactive. It only beeps after the fire has already started, the damage is underway. That's old school security. You're waiting for the breach.
And the weather satellite.
It looks at pressure systems, wind speed, temperature, and it tells you there is a hurricane forming, and it will hit in 48 hours. It gives you time to board up the windows.
So predictive AI is looking at those 750 million daily attacks and finding the hurricane patterns within them.
It analyzes behavior. It establishes a baseline of what normal looks like. Then it says, hey, this user usually logs in from New York at 9 a.m. Today they logged in from Lagos at 3 a.m. and tried to access the payroll database.
And it flags that before the data gets stolen.
That's the what will happen phase. The source called this the data analytics hierarchy. It's a ladder of value. It goes from descriptive, what happened, to diagnostic, why did it happen? Then predictive, what will happen? And finally prescriptive, what should we do?
And predictive AI automates that jump into the future.
It's a massive leap.
It really is. But I want to spend a minute on the creative side on Gen AI, because I think people assume that's just for writing emails or making funny pictures. But the source gives this really concrete example of how Gen AI is revolutionizing the Security Operations Center, the SOC.
The tiger pressure analogy, this is key for understanding the day-to-day work of an analyst.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so you're driving your car. A light pops up on your dashboard. Low tire pressure.
Annoying.
Very. But the light doesn't tell you why. Is it a nail? A leaky valve? Is it just really cold outside? The dashboard gives you the alert, but you have to get out of the car and investigate to find the root cause.
And the source argues that cybersecurity dashboards are the same way. You get a big red light alert. But to find out why.
You have to dive into the database, and here's the bottleneck. Querying that database usually requires knowing a complex proprietary coding language. Maybe it's SQL, maybe it's KQL. If you have a junior analyst who sees the alert but isn't a coding wizard, they're stuck.
They see the flat tire, but they don't have the wrench.
Precisely. This is where Gen AI comes in. It acts as the universal translator.
So the analyst can just type in plain English.
Show me all the login attempts from that user in the last 24 hours. The Gen AI translates that sentence into the complex code, runs the query, and brings back the data.
That just flattens the learning curve completely. You don't need to be a coder to be a hunter anymore.
And it saves massive amounts of time. Microsoft reported that using their security copilot, which does exactly this, saved their team 25% of their time.
A quarter of your day back.
When you are drowning in alerts, that's a lifeline. That's 2 extra hours.
It also mentioned using Gen AI for policy writing, which sounds a bit dry, but the logic was so sound. Most security policies are written in this legalese that nobody actually reads.
Right. If your password policy is 10 pages of jargon, people will just ignore it. And if they ignore it, they're not secure. Gen AI can take those technical requirements and rewrite them into clear, human-readable guidelines. It balances security with productivity.
Okay, so these tools are powerful, but, and there was always a but, they're only as good as the instructions we give them. This brings us to the skill set of the future: prompt engineering.
The art of the prompt. This is something everyone needs to learn, not just security pros.
The source compares this to the difference between training a puppy and talking to a child. I thought this was brilliant.
It really clarifies the mental shift. With a puppy or a traditional search engine like Google, you give commands: sit, stay, find this file. It's a one-way street.
You expect immediate robotic retrieval.
Right. But with a child or a Gen AI model, it's a conversation. If you say, help me set the table, a smart child will ask, okay, for how many people? Is it a fancy dinner or pizza night?
It's a back and forth that refines the outcome.
Exactly. So the takeaway is stop treating AI like Google. Treat it like a smart intern. And to do that, the source introduces the CREATE framework.
I do love a good acronym. Let's break it down. CREATE.
This is your checklist for a perfect prompt. C is for character. You have to give the AI a persona. Act as a senior cybersecurity analyst with 20 years of experience.
That sets the tone. It primes the model. What's our?
Request. Be incredibly specific about the task. Don't just say, check this code. Say, analyze this Python script specifically for SQL injection vulnerabilities and buffer overflow risks.
Specificity wins. Okay. E.
Examples. Give it a template. Format the output like a NIST incident report, or explain it to me like I'm 5. The AI needs to know what good looks like.
Big.
Additions. These are your constraints. Keep it under 200 words. Do not use technical jargon. Focus only on the financial impact.
T.
Type of output. What do you want back? A table, a bulleted list, a JSON file, a poem.
Hopefully not a poem for a security breach.
Generally, no. But seriously, format matters. And finally, the last E is extras. This is my favorite. Ask the AI to explain its reasoning. Show your work.
Oh, that's smart.
Or even better, tell it, before you answer, ask me 3 clarifying questions to make sure you understand.
That last one is a game changer. Making the AI interview you before it does the work.
It creates that feedback loop. If you stack all those up, character, request, examples, additions, type, extras, you don't just get an answer. You get a solution.
The source also briefly touched on temperature. That sounds like we're baking a cake or something.
It's a parameter you can often tweak. Think of temperature as a creativity dial. High temperature means the AI takes risks, it gets imaginative, it might even, hallucinate a bit.
Great for brainstorming marketing slogans.
Terrible for firewall rules. In cybersecurity, you want that temperature set to 0. You want it deterministic, factual, and boring. You do not want a creative interpretation of a virus signature.
No, absolutely not. I felt like this code might be malicious, is not a valid defense.
Exactly.
But speaking of creative interpretations, we have to talk about the risks. Because while we're using create to build better defenses, the bad guys are using it too.
Adversarial AI. The dark reflection. This is where the anxiety kicks in for a lot of professionals.
It's that arms race we mentioned. How are attackers using these tools?
In 2 main ways. First, code generation. It used to be that writing a complex exploit required deep technical skill. You had to know memory management, all that stuff.
Right.
Now, you can just ask a jailbroken LLM1 where the safety filters are off to write a script that exploits this vulnerability. It lowers the barrier to entry for cybercrime to basically 0.
So script kiddies become master hackers overnight. And secondly, phishing.
This is where Gen AI shines for criminals. We used to be able to spot phishing emails because they had typos, weird grammar, they just felt off.
Dear Sir, Madam, I am a prince from a faraway land.
Exactly. Those days are gone. Gen AI writes perfect, persuasive, context-aware English. It can scrape your LinkedIn profile, so you just attended a conference in Vegas, and generate a spear phishing email that references the conference, your actual job title, and your colleagues.
It's personalized at scale.
And the source also mentioned mutating malware. This sounded like something out of science fiction.
What is that?
It's digital camouflage. If your antivirus is looking for a specific shape of code, a signature, the AI can rewrite the virus's underlying code every time it replicates. It does the same bad thing, but it looks completely different to the scanner. It's constantly shape-shifting.
That is daunting. But there's one last risk the source highlighted that isn't malicious, but it's just as dangerous. Bias.
Yes. And we need to be clear, this is different from human prejudice. In AI, we're talking about statistical bias.
So the AI isn't mean, it's just looking at a distorted map.
Precisely. It learns from data. If the data is skewed, the AI is skewed. The source gave the tomato example, which is a great way to visualize this.
Right. Scientifically, a tomato is a fruit.
But culturally, and in many data sets, it's labeled as a vegetable. If you train an AI on that labeled data, it will confidently tell you it's a vegetable. That's a labeling error. It's right according to the data, but it's wrong according to reality.
Which seems harmless for a salad. But then they gave the breast cancer example.
And that is where it gets life or death. The source notes that Black women have a 41% higher mortality rate for breast cancer, but they have historically represented only 5% of the participants in clinical trials.
So if you train a medical AI on that trial data,
It has an unrepresentative sample. It literally hasn't seen enough data on Black women to accurately predict their outcomes or recognize their specific symptoms. It's not trying to be racist, it's just statistically blind in that area because the input data was flawed.
it really drives home that AI is a mirror. It reflects the world exactly as we show it, warts and all. If our cybersecurity data is biased, our defenses will have blind spots.
Which is why the human element remains so critical. We can't just trust the black box. We have to audit it. We have to look at the results and ask, does this actually make sense?
So, to wrap this all up, we've covered a massive shift. We're moving from a world where we manually fight 750 million fires to a world where we use predictive AI to spot the arsonists before they even strike.
We've seen how Gen AI acts as a translator, giving superpowers to analysts by turning plain English into code.
And we've learned that we need to treat AI like a colleague, not a puppy, using that CREATE framework to get the best results.
And we've acknowledged the shadow side. The bad guys have the same tool, and the tools themselves can be biased if we aren't careful.
You know, reading through all this, I had a thought about that loop. The source talked about AI predicting consumer behavior for marketing, and AI predicting cyber attacks for defense, and attackers using AI to predict our defenses.
It's a recursive loop of prediction. Everyone is trying to guess the next move.
Exactly. So if the marketing AI knows what we'll buy,
Yeah.
and the cyber AI knows what we'll click, and the defense AI knows what the attack AI will do, are we entering an era where the human element, our randomness, our chaos, our user confusion, is actually the only unpredictable variable left in the system?
That is a fascinating and slightly terrifying thought. It might be that human unpredictability is actually our last line of defense. The fact that we don't always follow the logic might be the one thing the AI can't model.
Something to mull over. Next time you open up ChatGPT or Copilot, try using that CREATE framework. See if treating it like a colleague changes the result. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Stay safe out there.